Welcome in again, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the R&D Sports Report. My name is Dishmond, and I'm joined, after a couple weeks away for both of us, by Rylee. Rylee, how are we doing this evening?
I'm doing great.
All right, so we do apologize a little bit for the lack of an episode last week. There were little scheduling issues between the two of us, and just unable to sit down and record. Just some things came up. Hopefully you all understand, but we're back at it again this week, and it's one of those things in the summertime. It can become a slow time of information, especially getting this late into the summer, right in this, we're gonna start college football, NFL, that whole training camp can get a little slow. But as we sit down to record today, a large story broke that Brett McMurphy, which some might remember, he used to be with ESPN, right? Used to be a college football reporter, and is arguably the best college football reporter there is. Post a story, not for anybody, right? Not for Sports Illustrated, not for the ESPNs, not even, for Fox Sports, anything like that, but on his Facebook wall. And I think, for one, before we get into the story, that kind of speaks, I think, to how people would rather receive their information. Right? Rylee, when was the last time that you read a newspaper?
When
was the last time you've seen a newspaper?
A couple weeks ago, but the last time I read one, it was very long ago.
All right, so newspaper, obviously not exactly what he used to do, but he used to do, and it speaks to the to what's happening, right? People don't really want to read stories anymore, which is part of the reason that companies like ESPN made such cutbacks on writers. I mean, how would you rather watch a video on a story and get the information, or read through it?
Story.
You'd rather read through the story or get it through video?
I'd rather read it, but I'd rather do both. But if I had to pick one, I'd rather just read it. I know that sounds pretty lame, but...
Well, no, it's actually kind of surprising. I figured you would say watch it on video just because it was quicker.
Yeah, but... Oh. Voice crack. No, I'd rather read it. I'm more of a read into...
More of an intellectual. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But a guy like Brett McMurphy, right, that's one of the reasons that companies like ESPN cut people like him loose. People don't want to read the stories. I think when you read a story, though, you can go in depth with it more. You can look over it again and find the information and make it seem right. But at the same time, that's an easy way to start poking holes in certain things. But getting on with the story and less about society as a whole. The story that Brett McMurphy broke on his Facebook page there was that in 2015 there was domestic abuse accused on Zach Smith. That's his name, right?
Yep.
Okay. For a second, his name went blank. Zach Smith, wide receivers coach at Ohio State University, or as some people like to say, the Ohio State University. And he was accused of domestic abuse by his wife at the time, now ex-wife,
Courtney Smith.
And the gist of Brett McMurphy's story is that Urban Meyer knew about it. He said he had evidence through text messages that Urban Meyer knew of the domestic abuse and did nothing. And this is a guy in Zach Smith that has followed Urban Meyer from his time at Florida to his time now at Ohio State. And I think this past year he actually was released by Urban Meyer or fired. But the big deal, obviously, is if Urban Meyer knew. And so before we kind of dive in maybe a little deeper to this, Rylee, first thoughts here on when you first saw the story, what were your first thoughts seeing the Urban Meyer story come out in general today?
Well, here goes another coach situation. That was probably my very first thought. Another thought that came to my head was they either had, you have to be really good friends to put your career in jeopardy to cover up something so big like that. That's either really good friendship or maybe
stupidity on his own part.
Yeah, very, very stupid. But that was just my thoughts on it. I thought it was dumb at first, but as I read into it, it kind of seemed interesting of why and how.
Well, and like when I first saw it, I thought, like is Urban Meyer gone? And the problem is we are so quick to jump to conclusions and to go ahead and assume different things instead of letting all the like pieces of the puzzle come out so we can completely put it together. And my first thought was, for one, if this is true, like, he's probably going to have to go. Not necessarily just for the fact of this is something his ex wide receivers coach did, but more of you lied about it. And having said that, the allegations are that he knew, and he's been asked questions about this before. And he said that he did not know. And actually, I think I saw somewhere where as recently as last week, he said, he knew nothing about this. And, the immediate reaction to me was, Ohio State's going to have to do something like today, which they did. They put him, for now, on paid administrative leave, which to me is the right call, because some people, immediately you saw immediate reactions of fire him.
Right, yeah.
Which, to me, I was like, okay, that's a little too quick to jump the gun.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily, we're not talking about him and the domestic abuse, which there is absolutely zero place for me, whichever situation it is. And in this instance, Zach Smith being accused of the domestic abuse, I have
no tolerance.
Zero tolerance.
Yeah.
That there's not much in life that I have a zero tolerance policy on. Domestic abuse is my zero tolerance policy.
I would agree.
Never to you should never raise your hand at your wife, your girlfriend, whatever. But at the same, we weren't talking that, Urban Meyer, right, was accused of this. He's accused basically of lying and knowing that this happened. And in and of itself, ultimately could lead to his firing. And I think before we get there, you're probably going to have to get a few more cards on the table.
I would agree.
For Ohio State to pull that trigger, because, you've seen what he's been able to accomplish at Ohio State. Now, a release regarding Urban Meyer from Ohio State, or as they put here on this letter, the Ohio State University. Statement from the university said the university is conducting an investigation into these allegations. During the inquiry, Urban Meyer will be put on paid administrative leave. Ryan Day will act as will serve as acting head football coach during the investigation. We are focused on supporting our players and on getting the truth as expeditiously as possible. I always love it when they use big words in these things.
Right.
The statement from Urban Meyer was that said, quote, Gene and I agree that being on leave during this inquiry will facilitate its completion. This allows the team to conduct training camp with minimal distraction. I eagerly look forward to the resolution of this matter, end quote. Thoughts on the statement from the university and maybe even Urban Meyer there. His right is obviously, well, yeah, I agree. Which, at this point, what can he really say?
I'm sorry.
You know, well, other than, like, yeah, I agree with what the university's doing. Let
me first say, I feel bad for the players again. With any coaching situation that happens, I always feel bad for the team, no doubt about it. But continue. I just figured I'd throw that in there.
Well, to me, the university is probably taking the right steps here and putting him on paid leave until you can get some more. Because the other point in all this is in these text messages, apparently, like, all the coaching staff's wives and the coaching staff knew. So
everybody, even Urban, knew. That's
what they're saying. And all these individuals are supposed to, have. This is what Brett McMurphy said on Brett McMurphy.
Oh my gosh, I could not speak. He is a reporter, right?
He's the one who broke this story on his Facebook.
Well, I keep getting him and like the lawyer.
Here's a quote he said earlier on CBS Sports Network with Bill Ritter. He said all of these individuals knew about Zach Smith's domestic violence issues except for Urban Meyer. Based on what Urban Meyer said, that's what we're supposed to believe. It's basically that a lot. And I heard earlier that's especially some of these these text and all that, right, said that basically all these coaches' wives knew about this. Because you can imagine in a situation like this, those coaches' wives are probably extremely close, and I would assume in most situations they are, because their husbands aren't home a lot, and especially with practices here and there, they probably become close. You're always going to be around each other.
I would agree. Here's the problem: is he's the head of the team, and you're telling he said right that everybody else knew except for him. Here's the problem with that: you're the head of the team, head coach, and you're telling me that nobody said nothing to you about it? That makes no sense whatsoever. I'm sorry, but how are you going to be the head of the president of everything and not know anything about it? That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not saying I'm on Urban's side or I'm on the other side. I'm just saying that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sorry. I don't know if you agree.
I'm sorry with what I spaced out there for a second.
You're good. I was just saying that how are you going to be the head coach of the team, head of everything, and say everybody else knew, yet nobody said nothing to you? How does that make sense?
Right. And the thing with this is, I probably, in the back of my mind, ultimately think Ohio State will end up probably firing him. But it's going to be one of those situations, like, you have to kind of justify being able to do it, because I imagine somewhere in his contract there's probably, he has to be fired with cause to not get any money that he might be owed. But ultimately, if it is fully proven out that he knew about domestic abuse, never said anything about it, and kept the guy on his coaching staff, like, once again, that zero tolerance in me says you got to go. Like, Ohio State has to fire him, and they will. I ultimately believe they will if they find out that he did in fact know about this, which then translated into you did in fact lie, you did in fact do nothing about it, you kept him on your staff, you got to go.
Oh, I'd agree.
To me, that's much worse than a guy like, to bring his name back up, Rick Pitino's instance with, whether it's Payne or Recruit, you could honestly probably not know about that. The strippers that he probably honestly could have not known about that because he probably would have put an end to it. Possibly, I don't know. It's one of those things you don't know necessarily because probably some degree of every coach especially is lying in some form or fashion. But my point there being that not saying something about a domestic abuse and keeping them on your staff is much worse to me than having strippers in the dormitories and paying a player to come play for you. The whole strippers thing, that's a little closer just because they're, underage kids in some instances that are there.
By the way, people, if you want to hear our thoughts, I believe it's episode 16, if you want to hear our thoughts on the whole U of L situation.
16, 17, yeah, something like that.
It's like 15, 16, 17, one of those three. Either way, but go give it a listen.
Now you got me curious. Oh, no. Man, that was way back there.
Yep.
That's episode 8.
Back in 1965.
We talk about the punishment for U of L. Wow. So episode 8, go check it out if you want to. But back on the Urban Meyer. And so, this whole thing that we're talking about is that whole jump to conclusion saying that this culture has in today, and not get too much on society rant again. All right. We still don't know if he knew. We do know apparently that his wife knew, though. And so to me, if his wife knew, I would think that she would have said something to Urban.
Yeah.
It was Courtney Smith, right?
Courtney Smith is Zach's ex-wife, and I believe it's Shelly or Shelly.
Shelly.
Okay.
Shelly Meyer is Urban Meyer's wife.
Yeah.
To me, I can't believe that she would find something out like that and just hold it in.
Yeah. But it could be a conspiracy theory, but what if bribery was involved in this?
Paid to keep quiet?
Yeah. It's just a conspiracy theory.
No, it is.
But
and something that, could be, but to me, there are a lot of reporters even going on this that, could have kept this quiet. And, I fully believe there are plenty of coaches that have reporters in their back pockets, right? And they keep them happy so they don't put stories out on them. But here, Brett McMurphy, what's he got, not necessarily to risk, but it's he doesn't work for anybody. He's not beholden, and honestly, when you're talking over reporters, that's what their job is supposed to do, is to basically keep everybody in line. And too often, I think we get it spun. But I did see something earlier in the day that he was talking about. Urban Meyer said that, if you remember back a couple 3 years ago, Jameis Winston stole those crab legs, that, he would have kicked them off the team. And to me, it's if you said you would have kicked Jameis Winston off your team, but you knew about a domestic abuse and you didn't get rid of that coach, that just seems shady to me. And I don't see how you could really justify in your mind, Urban Meyer considered to be a great guy, right? Considered to be a great coach. I don't see how you can justify, if he knew, how at all you can say, well, he's still a great coach, but...
I'm sure he is a great coach, but as a person, he's
said to be kind of a good person, right?
Well, look, I don't know if you've read Tim Tebow's full book, but Tim Tebow talks about...
He talks highly of him.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wouldn't say he's an idol because that's not what.
No, but he speaks highly of him, and
like respect, authority.
Exactly. He speaks highly of him not only as a coach but as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, if this is as a person, right, this is very character damaging.
Yeah.
Especially if it comes out that he did know. But
that's definitely going to damage how people look at you.
I wholeheartedly agree. But it's one of those things that you don't expect, right, going into a given day, because it kind of came out of nowhere. But having said that, it's something that needed to come to light in the sense that these are also Title IX issues, which Ohio State would then have some ramifications for. And that's the thing is, where is Ohio State? At what point are they going to say, look, we just can't have this keep dragging on? But in the beginning of Brett McMurphy's long post, he says, text messages I have obtained, an exclusive interview with the victim, and other information I have learned shows Ohio State coach Urban Meyer knew in 2015, now granted this is 2018, of domestic abuse allegations against a member of his coaching staff. Goes on to talk about Courtney Smith, of Zach, being the ex-wife of Zach Smith, and says the text messages provided between her and the wives of Ohio State coaches, which to me, if you're talking about wives, right, you're telling me one of those coaches didn't know, and one of those coaches didn't say something to Urban. So, like, the whole thing to me is, it's almost one of those things, how could you not know? Right? We talked, once again, back in episode 8, about the whole issue with U of L and Rick Pitino and all that, and when you look at some of it, it goes, how could you not know? And, I just think that this has to be the end for Urban Meyer at Ohio State.
Maybe at Ohio State, but I don't think his coaching
but see, here's the thing: is if it's found out, I think he's done completely. Like Ohio State, he's not getting another job. Maybe the NFL, but I don't even think that because of the issue of domestic abuse being involved with this.
Here's the thing, though: is covering up something like domestic violence is that a felony?
I don't know if it'd be a felon.
We need a cop in here.
Well, and see, that's I don't know legally if there's any issues. There may be an issue of not reporting it. Legally, I can't necessarily speak to that. But last week when he's at Big Ten Media Days, as we talked earlier, he said he had no knowledge of 2 alleged domestic violence incidents in 2015. So you're not just talking about one, you're talking about 2 instances where domestic violence is alleged, and that the Zach Smith was investigated by the Powell Police Department there in Ohio. And he said if he had known, he would have fired him in 2015. 3 years before he did fire him last week. After a first report about this whole domestic violence. So, to me, what Urban Meyer is saying, and this what I read here with Brett McMurphy's post, is, had I known about it in 2015, I would have fired him. When I heard of the allegations last week, I fired him. And the problem I have there is I'm a little skeptical of, was that just to kind of try to cover your butt?
Yeah. Like, more of, all right, I need you off of here, otherwise you're going to attract attention.
Well, in Brett McMurphy's Facebook post here, he talks and There's a quote here from Courtney Smith that says, all the wives, meaning coaches' wives, knew they all did, every single one of them. Which once again leads me into, you tell me those wives don't talk to their husbands, and those husbands that are other coaches won't talk to Urban.
Night, late at night, sitting in bed, like, you telling me they don't discuss that? Or ask what's wrong, carrying a heavy burden, whatever it may be? No.
Dumb. All right. So, the unknown here for Ohio State is if they were in violation of Title IX, which talks about discrimination based on sex, can include sexual harassment, rape, and sexual assault. A college or a university that receives federal funding may be held legally responsible when it knows about and ignores sexual harassment or assault in its programs or activities. So, does this stretch to the wives? That's something that's a little more of a gray area. But, to me, if it comes out that he knew, they're going to have to fire him with cause, and that would void his contract then. To me, I'm not so sure that maybe doesn't end up the ultimate decision to get rid of him and try to get rid of that distraction, and to try and move past this in the sense of being kept in the media's light. Not necessarily to move past it as an issue, but like to allow the team to move on from this and to keep playing. But when specifically asked if he knew of domestic violence incidents with Zach Smith, Meyer said, quote, "I was never told about anything. Never anything came to light. Never had a conversation about it. So I know nothing about it. I asked people back at the office to call and see what happened, and they came back and said they know nothing," end quote. But Brett McMurphy in his story says, however, text messages I have obtained sent from Courtney Smith to Urban Meyer's wife Shelley and other Ohio State coaches' wives show Urban Meyer and a number of Ohio State assistant coaches were aware of Smith's domestic violence issues for several years. So, not only are we pushing Urban Meyer, we're pushing more of the assistants. And, what Courtney Smith is alleging here is that multiple people knew about this, right? And that's what bothers me the most, is that if multiple people did know and nobody did anything, all of them need to lose their job, and all of them probably will lose their job.
Wow. Just bravo.
If you want to read the full story, because I don't really want to go into detail, it talks about the kind of one of the encounters and what Courtney said about it. You can go to Brett McMurphy's Facebook page. It's if you search Brett McMurphy, you'll find it. He's got the blue check next to his name, and it's also at the Brett McMurphy. And you can find his post on there, detailing all of this in greater detail than we are kind of talking about it. But in his story here, it says, one 2015 text exchange between Courtney and Shelley Meyer shows the extent of Shelley's knowledge of the alleged domestic abuse and that she was concerned for Courtney's safety. If you're concerned for someone's safety in a text, wouldn't you think you'd tell your husband who's that guy's boss?
Yeah, I would agree, but I feel like this is like girl power. We're going to stick together.
Well,
no, I'm not like hating on girls. You're
not trying to make light of this either. Like, no. I understand what you're saying. Like,
I felt like it was more of a sister conversation right there.
Well, and you could see an issue where maybe Shelley feels like it's on her own initiative to deal with this and not involve Urban.
Yeah.
Which completely could be the entire possibility.
Right, and it is reasonable for someone to try to do that as well.
But when we're talking here, they talk about some of these other wives of people that have been on Urban Meyer staffs and text here. And it's quite a back and forth. And it says it's an exchange between Courtney and Lindsay's the wife of Brian Voltolini, and he's considered one of Meyer's most loyal staff members. He's been with him for 15 years at Bowling Green, Utah, Florida, and Ohio State. So he's been with him a while. Courtney says Zach's trying to make me look crazy because that's what Shelley is saying he's doing. Lindsay replies, he, meaning Urban, just said that Zach denied everything. Courtney said, I hope Urban is smarter than that. Lindsay said, he doesn't know what to think, meaning Urban doesn't know what to think. Courtney said, I don't really care, and Lindsay replies with, yeah, don't worry about Herb, meaning Urban Meyer. And to me, it's, if you talk to him, and this is a text from November 2015, and you deny it all, wouldn't you think you know something then? So I think these texts will probably be kind of main evidence in all this, but it's a super long post, and we could honestly spend most of the time, because there are some pictures even that some might find disturbing. I find them disturbing for the fact of the abuse portion of them. But some of these people are claiming these are faked text messages and all, and those people I don't understand. I'm looking at a comment here from someone that says, I call BS, sounds like a journalist who no longer works for ESPN trying to make up a story to take down Urban. Text messages can be faked, which they can. Too bad crap like this has to take away from Urban, an honest guy just doing his job. What's sad is Urban is likely to lose his job, and McMurphy will get rich on this story. I'm like,
whoever said that.
I'm like, really, buddy?
Were they an Ohio State fan?
See if I can find anything out about him. But to me, the people that instantly deny and don't find any of this being plausible, and I do believe he's an Ohio State fan. He's from Ohio. It just, to me, I just go, really? Can you honestly be like that? To think that somebody like Brett McMurphy, which is a guy known, for his high standing in college football reporting, and that he has this ultimate vendetta to take down Urban Meyer. Do you think he really concerns himself with that?
No.
I don't think so.
I feel like the guy's just looking for attention.
No, don't get me wrong real quick.
Brett, since, you were talking about how he has nothing. He's a writer that has pretty much no job, has no recognition. Like a conspiracy theory earlier that I was talking about bribery, right? Could be that he's trying to make up things to the point of where he's trying to get himself big and recognized again. Now, I don't believe that, but I'm just saying it could be a possibility. There's 3 possibilities to this: bribery, Brett, and, the actual thing. I just think it's funny how there's 3 ways it could go. I think it's ridiculous. And I mean, as not going back to society, but as society, you have to look at it that way, especially with how messed up people are these days. Because people could be trying to get recognition. They could be trying to work for themselves. People are selfish nowadays. So you have to look at the bigger picture.
I agree with looking at the bigger picture, and I think that's where, even though it came out today, and you and I are talking about it now, it's one of those things that you got to wait till more pieces of the puzzle fall, as I said kind of at the beginning. The whole instance, there are pictures here of the abuse, which to me says it all. But, at the same time, stuff can be faked. And we do know that some will fake things just to try and drag other people down. And you have to try and decipher what's true, what's not true, especially in today's world. But we've been talking about this for quite a while, so I do want to move on from this so we actually get other things in. And in this talk, let's move more to your excitement for what will be coming up toward the end of this month, starting of September, right? First games play, August the 30th, 31st, something like that. Yes. Some of the first games roll, and that is college football is about to be back upon us. And you have some bigger games toward the weekend time. One of them that I can name offhand, one of the opening games is Alabama versus Louisville. There are some other games, and for the life of me, I had multiple games in my head. I cannot remember them. I want to say maybe Texas A&M opens up on that Thursday night game. But how excited, Rylee, are you for the start of the college football season?
Woo! It's exciting. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit?
Yes. Very exciting, as you can tell. I'm very excited, especially for the Alabama and Louisville, however you want to call it, game. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be real exciting. I'm really excited to see how the championship goes. I'm ready to see how I'm jacked up, how Ohio State does and their whole coaching situation. I'm excited for a lot of teams.
And you say,
not to bring it back up, but just
but I know, but you don't know how long this suspension will last, and you don't know how long it'll play into their season. So
yeah, I know.
Which you don't want to say and pull all that on them, but
Ohio State's going down. Down, dude. Ohio State to the Magic confirmed.
You in this Magic confirmed. So let me see here. There are some FBS games that actually start the week prior, but wow, nobody really big named out there.
That stinks.
Let's see, Friday the 31st. Any good games? No, not really there. The bigger matchups happen on the 1st of September. You have, as I said, Alabama and Louisville playing. You have, I'm trying to find some other bigger games. Here's a decent Tennessee, West Virginia.
Boo, I'm just kidding.
Georgia opens with Austin Peay, so no real worry there. Texas, Maryland, okay, decent-sized game there. What else do we have here opening weekend? USC, UNLV.
Hey, when's that Alabama game?
That's the primetime game, isn't it? Let's see. It is 8 o'clock on ABC.
8 o'clock on ABC. On what day is what I asked?
Oh, on Saturday the 1st. September the 1st.
Oh, okay. I was
September the 1st.
Well, I mean, it could have been January 1st. It could have been
Notre
July
Dame,
1st.
Michigan is on opening weekend. That's at 7:30. So there are a few big games out there opening weekend. Not a whole lot. For if we just stay here with the Alabama-Louisville game for a second, some interesting dynamics going on here in this game being played in Orlando. Louisville trying to replace their Heisman Trophy winning quarterback in Lamar Jackson. Alabama, I think, is returning the fewest percentage of starters on either side of the football. But at the same time, when you're talking Alabama, a lot of their second string could be first string for most teams in the country. So the whole not starting thing, they've probably played some, but I think honestly the most interesting dynamic is probably on Louisville's side is how do you replace a guy as phenomenal as Lamar Jackson?
Phenomenal is right, Bubby.
He's a polarizing player, right? A guy who we still don't know exactly what he'll do in the NFL, but we know his athleticism is special. We've seen him elude, defenders and all that. So how do you, as a football team, recover from that?
Off season.
Do what?
Off season.
Well, that's great, but I'm saying.
I mean, here's the thing. There, you're going against Alabama. That's the first team that you face, and yeah, Louisville's good, but Alabama first game, bro.
Well, but you have to think, this would have been set up when you might have thought Lamar Jackson would have been playing his senior year.
Yeah.
So you might have thought, hey, when he works up to it, you're not thinking he would have had such a special sophomore and junior year. Sophomore year being when he won the Heisman, senior or junior year when he would have been invited. So you might have thought maybe he'll stay another year to work on his passing.
Yeah. Either way, I'm excited for Lamar. I'm actually really excited to see how he does on the Ravens. But I think with Puma being new, which is a quarterback, in case y'all don't know.
Yeah, Juwan Pass. He goes by
Pass,
Puma, I think.
I just call him Puma.
Well, they call his nickname, I think, is Puma, but it's Juwan Pass.
Juwan, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's funny because Puma Pass. Puma Pass just, wait, no. Pass just passed it. Wait, no, hold on.
Yeah,
gotta read it again. That's funny. I don't know. It should be exciting for me because I'm excited to see how Juwan Pass is gonna do. I'm excited to see how Bobby does, and I'm excited to see how the first game of the season is gonna go. Whether we get destroyed or not, if we at least get a touchdown, heck, I'll be fine with it.
Well, and you think for Alabama, you have Jalen Hurts, who got replaced in the national championship game with, I can't even think of the name off the top of my head right now. And that's bad because it was just there. But, Alabama doesn't necessarily have a set QB1, right? So they have that issue. This game is, I think, more interesting than people will give it to because they'll see Alabama, U of L, and go, well, Alabama's going to kill them.
No.
But Alabama returning, I think, the fewest, as I said a minute ago, the fewest percentage of players, starting players. So you may have to work some in there, but they still do have a guy like Damian Harris, thought to be one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in the country. U of L replacing a guy like Lamar Jackson and other pieces along the way. It's not just him. Alabama's trying to find their quarterback. Will the defense be as good as it has been for Alabama? a lot of keys go into this. I still think Alabama ends up winning it.
Yeah.
And it might be a little bit of a blowout, but at the same time, you have to think Alabama necessarily is not a known to be ever a high-scoring team.
Yeah. I think what U of L has to focus on is passing. For them, you got Jalen Smith, Tutu Atwell, you have Juwan Pass. I think with the wide receivers and Puma as well, they just need to work on passing. I don't think they need to run it.
Well, the problem there, the only problem that they could have there is if Alabama knows you can't run on them, they're just going to send people like crazy at Puma. And that's the thing is, it's a fine balance because you're going against, it's basically a head coach in Bobby Petrino known for his offense and a head coach in Nick Saban known for his defense.
Yeah.
So it's which will win out. Probably the defense will win out.
Yeah.
Maybe more just because the overall talent pool is maybe a little stronger with Alabama because you have to think, when you get into those later parts of the games, what's your next string look like, And, I mean, you hate to even say, but you see what happened with Francois last year for Florida State going down against Alabama, getting injured in the first game. Not necessarily saying that's Alabama's vendetta.
No, that's fine.
But,
that's fine. We already got a good backup. We're good.
You have to be prepared for that. So on Sunday there is LSU Miami at 7:30, and then Monday Florida State Virginia Tech. Should be another decent game at least. The Miami LSU game is played in AT&T Stadium, Cowboys Stadium there in Arlington, Texas. So that should be a good game.
By the way, I do want to say I was talking about college football on my Twitter account, capital RYLEE _R&D Sports. Go follow me. I do talk about college sports and also retweet on stuff, comment on stuff. Go follow me.
The other football that is about to also come back into play is the NFL. About to start preseason games. Training camps have already started. A lot of news has come out. Andrew Luck, healthy for the Colts.
After 5 years. 5 years of being injured, he's finally
might
back,
be a
people.
slight exaggeration there.
Oh, my gosh.
But, I mean, you think that does add another dynamic to the Colts and giving them their quarterback, right? And, it's what can they do now? Are they going to be competitive for the playoffs? Jordan Matthews gets cut by the Patriots after apparently suffering a significant hamstring injury. They're possibly looking at Eric Decker. There's a lot of storylines. Khalil Mack is still out, holding out for the Raiders, the Jets, and Sam Darnold just agreed to a deal. Finally just signing his contract and working some stuff out. So, this time of year as stuff gets ready to start, like I get so hyped on the anticipation of it. Because, even you get a little bit of taste of college basketball even in August because you have two of the most high-profile teams kind of going into next year, and Duke and Kentucky both having foreign trips, both having games that you're able to watch. Kentucky's will be on ESPN, I believe, starting next week. I think you can watch Duke's on ESPN Plus, be able to get a look at them, right? Be able to get a look at a guy like Zion Williamson for Duke, right? Who weighed in at 285 for a basketball player, 285. And do you remember his height was what, 6'7"?
Yeah.
6'7", 285. Like, hey, that's a big dude.
Yeah, he's a beast.
And I'd be curious to compare him to the size of some NFL players, like weight wise. And that's what they have him build at Duke is 6'7", 285. Obviously, it's not all fat if you look at him. Like, the dude's jacked, but you also know there's some fat there, right? it's pretty obvious. To give a perspective here for you, J.J. Watt, his build, height, and weight is 6'5", 295. And so you're talking a guy in Zion Williamson who can jump out of the gym, as we've seen on YouTube clips, being just 10 pounds under a dude like J.J. Watt. Like, do you think a Zion can sustain that playing weight while at Duke?
I think he'll work it off. I think that with how much he'll be playing and what he'll be doing, I think he'll work it off, and he'll lose a little bit of weight.
I think he might lose a little. To me, it's also one of those, is this like a smoke screen thing? Because, many episodes back we talked about the whole Kevin Durant and his height. He only bills himself at 6'9", just for fun. Are they billing him at 285 just to make people think that he's fat and out of shape or something, and can't get up and down the court? For Duke, it'll be interesting to see if they can make it all work together. But, it's one of those things that you get a little taste of college basketball now. You're getting college football coming around. NFL is about to start with the preseason. And, it's an exciting time, especially when you're talking the NBA just ending and all that kind of all settling down, free agency settling down. And, when you talk of NBA free agency, though, you have Carmelo Anthony anticipated to sign with the Rockets, just got waived by the Atlanta Hawks after being traded. And I can't remember if you and I talked about this on here or off. You had said you thought he would be traded, and I said, well, if he does, he'll be traded to just be waived, right?
Oh, I thought you were about to say Atlanta Hawks. I was about to call you.
No, I didn't say the Atlanta Hawks.
I was about to call you.
But if you look at what Oklahoma City, they got a guy in Dennis Schroeder, play backup to Russ Smith. We were talking about U of L earlier.
Boy.
Russell Westbrook. And, he very serviceable sixth man there. He says he's excited about his new opportunity, but you also look at it and you go, well, you clearly can see that they were giving him to the Atlanta Hawks and Carmelo Anthony because they gave the Atlanta Hawks a first-round pick as well. So they traded him just to be waived, right? Because they knew Atlanta wouldn't keep him. You give him the first-round pick, and I think there was some couple other players involved.
It's okay. Trash goes with trash. I'm just kidding. Don't at me.
But Vince Carter just signed with the Hawks.
Yeah, no.
Dude's still playing at 41. Like, that's crazy.
Well, hey, look, Dirk is like 45.
Dirk's 40, I think, or something like that.
No.
Which, by the way, did you see him make
yes,
the
drug
joke
test? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, about the drug test and all that. Like, did you see me play? Clearly, I'm not on anything.
For real.
But, Melo to the Rockets will be interesting, and we've talked about this at length to see how it works. I don't know if it will necessarily work, and no, it's not the Magic that he's going to.
Or the Magic confirmed, though.
If
he goes to the Magic, I'm just throwing this out there, you owe me money.
If he goes to the Magic, it's for money. Because what he's talking about signing at Houston is like a $2 million contract.
See, now that's stupid.
Yeah, but see, he just got $25 million. He just made more money, and I saw this earlier, and I can't remember for the life of me where I saw it. He made more money in 5 days being waived by the Hawks than like Anthony Davis will make this upcoming season.
I think that was on ESPN Instagram.
It might. I can't remember exactly where it was, but it had a number. I think Kawhi Leonard was on there too. Like, he'll make more money than him this year in those last 5 days. But kind of wrapping it up here a little bit, talking about LeBron's I Promise school that he just created through the LeBron James Foundation. To me, I think that's exactly what NBA players, NFL players. Like, that's what you should be doing, is giving back. And, you know, it's not just a school that he created, because there are other things that come along with the school, and it's meant for at-risk children. You know, they get free tuition, free uniforms, free bicycle and helmet, free transportation within 2 miles, free basketball, free breakfast, lunch, and snacks. There's a food pantry for the families so they can be able to have food in their house. The families can also get GED and job placement services for the parents so that they can maybe try to improve their lives as well. And then there is a guaranteed tuition to the University of Akron for every student who graduates. So, you know, it's not like he just built a school and said, hey, you all can go to school here. To me, I think this aspect of LeBron's life doesn't get talked about enough. His giving
Agreed.
back, especially to that Akron community. You know, how many, I think it's in, I want to say honestly, it's in the hundreds of thousands of students that he's put through college there at the University of Akron. And the giving back, like, to me, guys like him and guys like, as we talked a little bit ago, J.J. Watt, you know, with that whole Houston flood, like, to me, that's what athletes should be doing with their positions, right? Having such a big role in society, getting paid all this money that you necessarily don't really need to have to play a sport, but giving back to the community around you, to your home community for LeBron there with Akron. And, you know, the school looks beautiful. Some of the pictures that you can see from it, you know, everybody getting a bike and a helmet because that, LeBron said, I believe, was his escape, right? His ability to get away from things was that bike and helmet that he had. And trying to change so many lives, right? So they don't have to grow up the way he did, with having a single mom and him himself being an at-risk youth at a certain point.
While we're on the whole donating money in athletes participating in society, Derrick Rose, I can't get it to load for the life of me, but Derrick Rose announces $400K college tuition program. Now, I can't get it to load to read the details, but that, like, I like Derrick Rose. I don't know about you, but I love Derrick, so.
Well, to me, like, give me these stories all day long. I would much rather sit here and discuss with you things like the I Promise school, you know, J.J. Watt's stuff that he did in Houston, and the raising the money for those flood victims. As you said, Derrick Rose and, you know, his college tuition program that he's got started apparently there. My assumption, it might be somewhere around Chicago where he's from.
Yeah.
But, like, give me those stories all day long instead of all these negative stories. You know, the Urban Meyer story that comes out, and yeah, we don't have to talk about it, but it's big news.
Well, it's better than seeing someone getting, like, Dre getting punched or J.R. Smith throwing a fan's phone.
Right.
That's too overhyped. Sorry.
Well, and to me, it's like those fans, you know, and things like that. You know, so many athletes have issues with fans, and yeah, I know some are crazy, but, like, those fans are what pay your bills.
Yeah.
Right? To me, you would think you'd be a little more appreciative. But lastly, I do want to finish up here with something that I know you've been biting at the bit to talk about.
Thank God.
And that is some new ratings that came out for NBA 2K19. Like to get a little video game talk in here because both of us enjoy playing video games, especially the sports ones. Yeah. And if you haven't been following Riley's Twitter, he's been retweeting and giving his own thoughts on these different rankings that have come out. So I'll kind of let you lead here, Rylee, for a second of who you want to talk about first and their overall rating.
All right, we're going to start off with, let's see, who are we going to start off with? We're going to start off with Kawhi and DeMar DeRozan. For me, Kawhi was out the whole year last year for maybe, 3, 4, or 5 games? Anyways, his rating was in the 94.
I think he played 8 or 9 games.
All right. Either way, his rating was a 94. Now, I saw DeMar DeRozan's, and it was an 89. And if I go back to my profile here, this is what I said about it, which it's pretty funny to me. I said, I know I'm a little late to respond to this, but no. You can't have Kawhi in 94 when he was injured the whole season. Now, that was a little exaggeration, but you get what I mean. Then you're going to disrespect DeMar DeRozan by giving him a 89 rating. Yep, totally fair. My thoughts would be Kawhi at 93 and DeMar at 92. I still think Kawhi is a little bit better than DeMar.
I think at 92 is probably a little too high for DeMar, though.
Okay, then let's go at least 90.
You see, I could hang 90, but I'm not completely upset with the 89 for him, just because it's right there. But I think 90 because
90 would probably.
I think DeMar probably gets a little more credit than he maybe needs. But 94 you said for Kawhi?
Yep.
Probably, I do agree. Maybe a little high coming off an injury to see what he's going to be as a player afterwards. But 93 I could hang with. 92 maybe even, but not upset at 94. What you got next?
We have your boy Karl Anthony Towns. I didn't even have nothing to say for this. I said, bruh. Just, bruh. How are you going to have Karl Anthony Towns? How many years has he been in the league? 2, 3? 3? Right.
This will be, let's see.
It's either 3
This will be 3.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. How are you going to have a guy that's been in, and I know I keep using DeMar, but how are you going to have a guy that's been in the league 9 years? 9 years. He's worked his butt off for a lot of things. And have him at an 89. I don't know.
What's Karl Anthony Towns at?
He's a 91.
See, to me, for Towns and DeMar, they make a difference, right? To me, there's a difference-making aspect of Karl Anthony Towns' game when he's on the floor for the Minnesota Timberwolves. You know, he can play inside, he can play outside. To me, I think that, when DeMar DeRozan's on the floor, when he was playing with the Raptors last year, there's a reason he wasn't playing in the fourth quarter and in the playoffs. So, I think you have to also take into consideration the difference-changing aspect of the players. So,
that's reasonable. Of course, they gave Paul George 89.
See, to me, that is a little low for Paul George, even coming off a bad season. I'm thinking
93.
he should a 92.
92, 93.
90, yeah, I think 92, 91. So I think, what'd you say, 89?
Yep.
So, to me, I think Paul George is a little bit better player than DeMar DeRozan, and if he's an 89, I don't know.
In my retweet on this, I said that 80 was a 94, by the way. I can agree, but I feel like it's too high for 80. And I like you just said about Cat, he makes a huge difference in the game. I just think he's more of a 91, 92.
See, to me, for Anthony Davis, 94 seems a little high, but if I change it, it'd be a 93, 92. But his three-point shooting's coming up. He's still a force as a rim protector. Can still rebound and is so versatile that I think that puts him up to the 94 range.
I just feel someone like Paul George needs to be higher.
I agree. Paul George is probably higher, but at the same time, maybe it's coming off a bad year kind of that he had last year. He kind of had a down year there in Oklahoma City comparatively to his Indiana days. But anybody else there?
We got Damian Lillard coming at a 90.
That seems fair to me.
Really?
Yeah. Maybe 92 at most.
I said
but
93.
See, I think that's too high. I think 92 at most, but
okay.
90 seems decently fair.
Kemba Walker, 86. I said
probably a little
reasonable.
low.
I said
a little low, maybe an 88, but I think kind of reasonable for Kemba.
All right. We got one more. A couple more. We got D'Angelo Russell coming in at 83.
Who cares?
Exactly. That's what I said.
Like, there's a reason he didn't stick it with the Lakers.
And for the last one, we have Giannis coming in at a 94.
That seems fair.
I said a 90. Like, I figured 92. I said that's reasonable. I feel like
I think his thing is at 90. Like, he's so versatile in what he can do and being so tall, similar to Kevin Durant. You know, Kevin Durant's a prolific scorer being so tall. Adds more there to him. But to me, 94 seems reasonable, maybe a little high, maybe 92. But also Giannis, dude's looking jacked. Dude's been working out in the offseason.
I did comment on that as well.
But if you want to see any more of those retweets or to look over the ratings yourself, you can go to Riley's Twitter page. It's Rylee_RD Sports, RYLEE. You can communicate with me on Twitter, Dish_RD Sports. Hit up the podcast page on Facebook or Twitter. You can just search RD Sports Report on either of them. And be sure to go and subscribe wherever you're listening to this. Follow, like it. If you're there on iTunes, you can hit us up with the 5-star as you subscribe to it. And you got anything else for him, Riley?
We love you.
We do love you, especially if you give us the 5 stars there on iTunes. Help us shoot up the charts. Spread the word about this great podcast to all your friends, to all your neighbors, to everyone around the globe. And with that being said, that'll do it for another episode of the R&D Sports Report.